Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And thanks again for being here. We're going to be taking a look at, oh, let me let Dakari into the room. We're going to be taking a look at ocean plastic pollution today through the lens of several different contemporary artists. But I'm also going to share with you some really cool art activities that I've put together for you guys so that you can engage with the lesson. All right. Okay, no worries, Sophia. So as we go, as you know, as always, in Nearpod, there'll also be some engagement pieces for you guys to interact with as we move through the lesson today. But the art activities, you don't have to turn them in today because you're going to probably want to gather some materials and think about what you'd like to create before you do so. So um, has everybody had a chance to click this link before I move forward? Okay, wonderful. All right. Ocean plastic pollution. Here we go. Um, to begin with, sharing with you an overview of what this lesson is about. And it's not something that we need to read through together because we're actually going to go through all of the material as it is listed here in this slide. But if you would like to revisit this later, you're welcome to. It will be in the slideshow presentation, and I am going to share this to the course message board. Next up is a list of concepts. Again, we're going to be exploring all of these concepts in our live lesson, but this page also doubles as a vocabulary list. So if there's something I'm talking about and you don't understand what it is, you can, of course, ask me in today's live lesson. But if you revisit this later, you'll have a chance to go through all of these concepts independently as well. And then we have our goals for today's lesson, but they tie right into our lesson objectives. And this is something that you're more familiar with, our lesson objectives or learning objectives, as it states here. There are 4 for our lesson. So we're going to explain the process of photo degradation and how it leads to the formation of microplastics in our environment. We're going to raise awareness among students about the severe consequences of microplastics on marine life. Well, I should say the lesson is going to, not we are. The lesson is going to raise awareness. And then the lesson is going to help students understand the sources of ocean plastic pollution, including litter on land, rivers, and streams, and as well as encouraging critical thinking and reflection on the future implications of our current plastic production trends. All right. It goes on from there, but I don't want to give away too much. Let's dive into our lesson. Okay. To get started, I would like for you guys to take a look at this contemporary work of art. It is called Bounty Pilfered. It's by the contemporary artist. Her name is Pam Longobardi. And I'm simply wanting you to share with me what you see here. What kind of observation can you make when looking at this work of art? I'll give you just a moment to reflect upon it before I take us over to our first discussion board. This is the entire work of art here on the left, but on the right-hand side, I've got a close-up of the exterior and a close-up of the interior of this work of art. So what do you see? What do you notice? What kinds of observations can you make? And so in our first discussion board, here it is. If you could please share what you see by entering your thoughts into the white toolbar at the bottom and populate the discussion board. What do you see here when you look at this work of art? All right, we'll go ahead and move along. Here are some questions to get us thinking about the lesson. Feel free to unmute or type your thoughts in chat. What do you already know about pollution in general? So this lesson is on ocean plastic pollution, but are you already familiar with pollution? Do you know some things about it? For example, where does plastic trash go when you're done with it? We know that we throw garbage away all the time, but what exactly does that mean to throw garbage away? Would you guys like to share your thoughts in chat? Or you can unmute. My next question is, have you ever heard of the term, oh, Talia. So to get rid of it, that's what it means to throw something away, to get rid of it. Mhm. That's typically what I think of when I say I'm going to go throw this away. Because once it's out of my hands, right, it's out of my mind, I'm no longer thinking about it. Do you find that you're the same way? Once you've thrown it away, it's you've gotten rid of it both physically, right, and also mentally. It no longer occupies your thoughts. You agree? Mhm. Out of sight, out of mind. Yes, indeed. I like that. Good job. So let me ask you this. Have you ever heard of the term photo degradation? No. Okay. Um, how do you think that plastic pollution impacts the planet? It's out of our sight and out of our mind, but what happens to the planet? Can the planet get rid of it? Let's, you might be right, Tilia. Let's take a look and see what we can learn. So traditional plastics, when the world started making plastics, we refer to those, it does impact the world negatively. Yes, indeed. We're going to talk about some of the very serious ways in which plastic pollution impacts the world negatively. Thank you for your comment. I appreciate that. So, in the beginning of the production of plastics, they were made a certain way, and the way that plastics are produced and the ingredients that go into them has changed over time. We're going to begin by taking a look at traditional plastics. Those are those first plastics. They don't biodegrade. And what it means to biodegrade means that the object is made of natural ingredients. For example, food will biodegrade. If you throw an orange peel into the yard, that orange peel will biodegrade because it's of nature and it will return to nature. Yes, like decompose. Exactly. Exactly. Our paper products, those will biodegrade because they're made from wood and pulp and other natural ingredients. They can be absorbed back into the earth, exactly like decomposing. But plastic does not have that ability. We put chemicals into plastics that make the plastic material unnatural. Therefore, it can't return back to nature because it's not from nature. And so, in order to get rid of plastics, they go through a process called photo degradation. And what it means is that UV rays, these are special kind of rays found in particular light sources. The sunlight is one of these light sources that carries UV rays. You've heard of like putting on your sunscreen because UV rays can be harmful. Because they are powerful rays, right? And so they have the ability to begin breaking down these traditional plastics. And this process where traditional plastics begin to weaken and break down into smaller pieces is called photodegradation. These smaller pieces, we call them microplastics. Do you guys know what the prefix micro means in microplastics? And you've probably yes, very good, small. Like I like to think of a microscope. A microscope allows us to see very small things. Micro does mean small. Very good. So this process is called photodegradation. It requires UV light rays and and it creates microplastics. Can you think of any traditional plastics that you might have in your own home? You can even take a minute and look around or walk around and see what you can identify. I'm sure we're all very familiar with traditional plastics that we find in our kitchens, our plastic bags, our plastic baggies, our water bottles, our containers that we snap our food into. We buy plastic food containers all the time at the grocery store, but you have other plastics in your house. And you don't have to do this right now. You can revisit this lesson later when you're submitting your art activities, and you can enter a response in this, or you can do it now in it's up to you in this open ended question. What are some traditional plastics found in your home? So, for example, like probably all of us have plastic toothbrushes. They do make different kinds of toothbrushes. There are toothbrushes made from bamboo, for example, but we probably all have plastic ones. And so I'm asking you guys to make just a short list of some different plastic items you've noticed in your own home. And come back to that open-ended question. Now, this is a close look at microplastics. So we can observe by looking at microplastics under a microscope that they are different shapes, they're different colors. There's even variation in the sizes, right? Some are very, very small, while others are just microscopic. Some are very, very microscopic. There's a range in size. On the next slide is some information. This is an article from National Geographic that I will invite you to come back and read later once I've shared this to the message board. It's got a lot of great information in here about microplastics, as does this video. This video is only about 4 minutes long. You don't have to watch it right now. We're gonna continue with the lesson, but it's got some really wonderful information for you guys on the dangers of microplastics in our oceans. Okay, so there are three art activities that I'm going to share with you today. This first one is called Imaginary Microplastics. And so what I'm asking you to do is consider what microplastics look like when you create this lesson. So I've shared with you some pictures of them, but you'll get a better look at them by watching that video. And there's also a great photo of them in that article. And then once you've had a chance to review that content, I would like for you to try out this art activity. You're going to create a work of art that illustrates microplastic pollution in the ocean. This is an example that I created of a clownfish habitat with all of the different microplastics, different colors and sizes and shapes. And this is how I chose to illustrate it. You can illustrate this in any number of different ways. There are a few suggestions here. Maybe you want to illustrate the process of photodegradation of a plastic object photodegrading, or maybe you want to do something um, a little uh, a little diverse from that. Maybe you would like to personify a microplastic. And maybe you could even go further than that, put it in a comic. What would that microplastic say to a sea creature or to other microplastics in the ocean? You're welcome to use any materials that you have, or they can be 2D or 3D materials to create your design. And then I invite you to share your artwork on a Padlet, and you can also tell us a little bit about your artistic vision and process. So this is a class presentation where I invite you to share to the Padlet your artwork and your vision for your art piece here by adding to this Padlet. Now, the next work of art that we're going to look at, it might already be reminding you of something that we just learned about. This work of art is called Plastic Ocean by the contemporary artist Kanziski. It's a contemporary work of art that illustrates the enormity, the giganticness of this global ocean plastic pollution crisis that we're facing. My question is this: what conclusions can you draw between this work of art and what you have already learned about microplastics? I'm going to invite you to share your thoughts on the second discussion board, which you can come back and do later when it's more convenient for you. But that is something I want you to be thinking about. There's several different ways that ocean plastic pollution gets into our or that plastic pollution gets into our oceans. Some of it is just happens in the ocean. Commercial fishermen, people swimming in the ocean, cruises. So some of that pollution occurs in the ocean, but 80% of it actually travels to the ocean. It's often begins as litter or as trash that gets blown out of um, um, what are those trucks that pick up garbage? The trash man? Garbage trucks. It gets blown out of garbage trucks on the way to the dump. Um, the wind carries this garbage. Birds carry the garbage. Wild animals carry the garbage. When this garbage reaches water, these waterways are world's rivers and streams. They connect with the ocean, and that's how plastic pollution gets deposited into the world's oceans. That's how 80% of it gets there. Um, Now we're talking about litter that travels to the ocean. There are other ways that microplastics enter the ocean. You'll learn about that by watching that video and reading that article. But it is estimated that by the year 2050, statistics state that there's going to be more plastic than fish in our world's oceans if we keep producing plastic at the rate at which we are now. If we continue to litter and produce plastic as we are now in just, well, that's only 27 years from now. How old are you going to be in the year 2050 when there's more plastic in the oceans than there are fish? If you guys are like 15 years old right now, how old will you be in 27 years? It's not far away. You'll only barely be like 40 years old. Did you know that it can take up to 450 years for a traditional plastic bottle to photodegrade? Some traditional plastics take much, much longer than that. 450 years, can you guys even conceive of how long that is? It doesn't seem like enough time. Should take longer, right? Okay, so Talia, 450 years. If we go back, like that is like that's not your mom and dad or your grandparents or your great grandparents or your great great grandparents. Maybe not even your great 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 grandparents. Maybe it's your great 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 grandparents. If they were making plastic when your great 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 grandparents were alive, their trash would still be on our planet. So we can think of that as moving forward. It's going to be your great 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 grandchildren, right, who are still seeing your plastic trash in the ocean. That's a long time for plastic trash to be on our planet. Oh, did I have more to say there? Oh, yes. Oh, so why do you think that we're still producing plastic? Leah, like that's a long time. So yeah, oh yeah. So yeah, think about it like that. Like it's a generational crisis. This plastic will be around for generations to come. Mhm. So why are we humans still producing plastic? When there are so many other ways that we could solve our problems, like there are friendlier resources. It's convenient. Sophia, right? It is convenient, isn't it? So we have to change the way we're thinking about convenience. It's convenient now, but will it be convenient later when this problem is out of control? No. Do you guys think that there are friendlier resources that we could be using instead? That's my open-ended question to you guys. Since it can take up to 450 years for a traditional plastic bottle to photodegrade, why do you think we're still producing plastic? Which, Sophia, you've already said because it's convenient. I would have to agree. That's an excellent answer. Are there other answers? And then what are some other earth-friendly resources that we could use instead? Sophia, very good. Maybe metal or steel. So I want you to go beyond that when you come back and respond in this open-ended question. What could we make out of metal that we're currently making out of plastic? Or what could we make out of steel that we're currently making out of plastic? Dakari, because of money. That's a great response. Money does rule the world, doesn't it? Sophia, literally anything we could make. So, okay, so I want to tell you something. In the early, I think it was the early 80s, or it might have been the late 1970s. I was born in 1971. So I was a little girl and I was at the grocery store with my grandmother when I saw my first plastic bag. Before that, all of our groceries came home in paper bags. Nobody ever asked before the invention of plastic. They never said, would you like me to put your groceries in a paper bag? That's all they had. And then we were sold on this idea of plastic bags because it would save the trees, which it hasn't saved the trees. Deforestation is still a world crisis, a separate world crisis, but now we have plastic pollution on top of it. So, we want to think of earth-friendly ways that we can resolve that problem. So, for example, there are stores like a Target and a Sprouts grocery store. I've seen them in both of these stores that sell reusable bags. They're made of a different kind of plastic. There are plastics now that can be that are degradable that algae will eat. So that's a wonderful solution. And then these reusable bags made from that kind of plastic are good. That's one idea. And also paper bags, yes. Very good. But maybe maybe our paper bags need to be made from a more sustainable source like bamboo or hemp, not 300-year-old pine trees, right? So here's my next art activity. For this activity, you're going to design a poster, and I offer you a couple of different ideas, but your poster could go in any creative direction that you would like for it to go in. You're going to contemplate why mankind continues to produce plastics given the environmental uh, issues that it causes. And then you'll create your poster. So one idea is that you could illustrate what the oceans might look like in the year 2050 when there's more plastic than fish in the world's oceans. Or maybe you want to do what I did and you can design an ad campaign poster for a sea creature um, who's expressing how they feel about all of our plastic pollution in their ocean. Or you can design and illustrate a machine or some kind of invention for solving the plastic pollution in our world's oceans. However you'd like to do that. And again, use any materials you want. It can be 2D or 3D. It can be mixed media like I've done here. I've got googly eyes, construction paper, and then I took a photo and added a digital art element with this little word bubble. So for this assessment, I'd like for you guys to do a little bit of writing and write what's called an artist statement. And in an artist statement, you just talk about your creative choices and how you went about making your work of art. And it's also common to talk about how you use the elements and principles of art when you write an artist statement, which you're welcome to do that as well. And for this submission, this is not, we're not sharing these with the class. These will you'll submit directly to me through a Google form, which it'll allow you to upload a file. And I'll click here so you can see what it looks like. You'll be able to put your first and last name like you always do, but then you can add a file. So take a picture of your art and upload it the same way you do for all your classroom assignments, um, that you need when you need to submit a picture of something. And then down here, you can either type directly into this text entry box your artist statement, or you can write it on a separate sheet of paper and then copy and paste it. I don't mean paper, I mean like in a Word document or a Google Doc and copy and paste. Okay. All right. So we are moving on now to the last bit. Here we're looking at another contemporary work of art. This one is called Plastic Pacific. It's by an Australian photographer. She's a contemporary artist. Her name is Kim Preston. When looking at this work of art, what do you think these plastic bags represent? And my next question, do you think there's more than one way to interpret this image? All artwork is open for interpretation. Sometimes we get an idea of what something reminds us of or how we interpret it or what it means, but is there more than one way to interpret this work of art? And I invite you to share your thoughts on the third discussion board here. When you come back into this lesson, you can type and add to the discussion board. I'm really curious to hear what you guys think about that. So ocean plastic pollution, not just microplastics, but all of it, it's harmful to sea life. Plastic pollution and microplastics are often mistaken for food by sea creatures. And those plastics get consumed, they eat them, and millions of marine animals die every year because of this from eating plastic. This is not the only way that plastics lead to the deaths of sea creatures. Consuming the food certainly does because it can jam up their digestive system, which can cause them to starve to death. That's one way eating these foods do that. Um, Another way plastics can lead to the deaths of animals is by those animals getting caught in those plastics. So a lot of animals that live at sea also breathe air. Whales, dolphins, sea turtles, sea lions, seals. You get the idea. Those animals have to be able to surface in order to breathe. They get entangled in plastics, can prevent them from getting up to the surface. So it can lead to drownings as well, and also deformities. Those animals getting trapped in plastics when they're young, as they grow trapped in that plastic, their bodies get deformed, can get deformed as well. So I've got another excellent resource for you here to go to learn, do some independent learning by watching this video on plastics and how they're dangerous and harmful to sea creatures when they consume them. And after you've read that, you can come back and rejoin the lesson, and you'll be able to answer these questions. Why do you think sea creatures don't recognize plastic as being not good for them? Why are they eating it? How do they not know the Doritos bag is not good for them to eat? What makes it harmful to them? Why is it harmful for them to eat plastic? You'll put your responses in this open-ended question. Why do you think sea creatures don't recognize plastic as being inedible or harmful? Inedible means not edible, meaning don't eat it, right? Um, and why is it harmful? And so that brings us to the final art activity. In this activity, I invite you guys to consider the ways in which plastics are misunderstood by marine animals, and consider the harmful consequences these sea creatures experience when they make this mistake and mistake plastic for food. You guys can illustrate a finished work of art that shows your understanding of these consequences when marine animals eat plastic. Again, any 2D or 3D materials that you want to use are A-OK. And for this assessment, I'm going to ask you guys to do a self-evaluation. Once you finish your work of art, you'll just reflect on what you've done and you'll determine whether or not your artwork clearly expresses your idea and also your intentions. Like, you'll be essentially determining whether or not your artwork was successful in expressing what you hoped to express. And the same thing here, you'll submit using this Google form. This one is called Food for Thought, and it invites you to upload your files and also type your self-reflections into the text entry box. When you're all done with your artwork and your open-ended questions and your discussion boards, watching your videos and reading that article, you can also answer the exit ticket. The exit ticket has 4 questions on it, and each one directly relates to one of the learning objectives that we went over at the beginning of the lesson. I ask you to explain the process of photo degradation, name a consequence of microplastics on marine life, tell me what is one way in which plastic litter gets into the ocean, and give me an idea of what we might do to reduce the impact of ocean plastic pollution. And there you have it. I thank you guys so much for joining me. Do you guys have any questions for me? No? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to post this lesson link to the message board, and I hope you go in there and submit some of your works of art so I can check them out, okay? Yes, Talia. What's up? There's no due date. No, no due date. This is an enrichment lesson, meaning that I invited you to come and learn with me and also to share some fun art activities. Because if you love art the way I love art, you look for opportunities to create. So I wanted to share them with you. Okay, that was a good question. All right, you guys, I will see you all next week. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye.